when you were deciding to go onto this path, did you have any inhibitions in that process? And even today, how you look at your career?
100%. I think in a path like this, fear, anxiety become your best friends. Shit, being an artist is difficult. It takes dedication, it's isolating, it takes consistency, it takes a different type of discipline, and it's hard. The last 5 years of entrepreneuring have taught me that there's a certain practicality to being honest as well. I think our culture doesn't reward honesty and vulnerability very well. How can we get international lobbying and pressure to work in a way that informs a past reality to become better in our future? 100%. I'm all for that. Passion will not fill your stomach. Like it'll not. Of course, passion is important, but it's not going to fill your stomach.
Shaleen, how are you?
Today it is a rainy day. But I'm good.
How isn't that what most of India has become as of now? And also Bombay is popularly known for.
Oh yeah, yes. Bombay is very much known for that, and because I'm sitting in an archive, I must add that the constant rain, moisture, and dampness adds a different kind of professional worry.
Yeah, I know. And I'm very, very interested in talking about what you're doing right now. But for everyone who's listening, I want to just set some context. Shaleen is an art historian, curator, and an arts writer, and a lot more profiles that I think I may not even know myself. So I'm going to leave it on her. But I just wanted to set this context and welcome her and everyone on the podcast who's listening. And before I give away too much, I want Shaleen to herself introduce herself. For anyone who's listening, how would you explain us who you are and what you do in the most simple way?
I want to bring audiences closer, and I bring audiences closer to South Asian art, history, heritage, and culture. So that's one easiest introduction, yeah, that I could do.
Okay. And so what does that entail in that process? I know you curate shows, you do these amazing heritage walks that I have to come for. I haven't done that
I'm
yet.
surprised you not done it yet.
Yeah, because I've not been in Delhi as much now. I've just been moving so much that I haven't been able to be anywhere at all, apart from studio and anywhere on the road. But so you have these heritage walks that I understand. Okay, you want people to get closer to art history. You take them to these monuments, and then you take them through the storyline. Let's say I'm sure like it's like you're getting people familiar with how things have happened in the past, making it more approachable. Then you curate these shows, and a lot of these shows um, are featuring emerging contemporary artists from India, Southeast Asia, I'm sure.
India, South Asia, India at the moment, but yeah.
Apart from that, can you just take me through a little, like some bits of your projects? You have won awards. You've done this British Museum archive documentary. Then you're doing this archive work that you are at right now. Take us through your life, and let's also go through how you started.
In class 8, my history teacher was very inspirational. She was describing a war scene, actually, of Emperor Ashoka. And when I heard that, there was a film in my mind about how this is transpiring. And I was transported in that moment. So I was very happy. So I knew that, okay, this is something very innate to me, where I can imagine very clearly in my mind at least a certain past record of history. Very easy for me. Having said that, when it moves on to how I grew from class 8 to by 11th and 12th, I had an idea that art and history are somewhere I want to be able to combine them. What very few people know is that I would be what we would call at least a self-taught artist to an extent, but I get so scared in saying that because there are practical artists much like yourself. So I trained. I trained in oil and watercolor, charcoal, you name it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So we go to my old Facebook. There's like this whole set of portfolio and everything, and I applied to design schools. I got through them. So yeah, and design schools also look at a lot of your artistic portfolio. So like Shrishti, MIT, ID Pune. I applied to NID, and these are very known schools within the Indian pantheon, right? So I got through most of them, and whether it was fate, whether it was anxieties of parenting, whether it was stroke of luck, whatever it may be, I ended up studying history, and that led me closer to art history, to be very honest.
Do you know I also come from a history honors?
Oh, I did not know that. So you see, so we learned this about each other. We went in a sort of opposition. Yeah, yeah, I love it. So while I was studying history, though, I would have these art classes, and charcoal portraiture is yet my favorite. Um, so that was a possible trajectory, right? Like, would I want to go into creating art full time?
You had this question because you felt that creative flair, so I'm sure, because the first instinct people have is, if I remember when I thought, I come from a design school, and I for me art was way far beyond, but I could approach it as a designer. So one thing I knew, I could be a designer. Now what kind of designer? I thought, okay, the most approachable people can find in India is being a fashion designer, and that's what came to me. And I'm sure, like, I feel like, when someone who has like a creative flair in the arts, the first thing they would be, okay, I can be an artist. Is that like, that also occurred to you?
I was so tuned into that, but whatever said, and I didn't apply to art school, I applied to design school. NID final interview. They asked me, okay, why do you want to become a designer or study design at NID? I gave the most unfettered truth. I want to become an artist because I'm very much in tune with creating art. But my father said that it's more financially sustainable to become a designer, hence.
To be in
Obviously, कोई नहीं लेने वाला था मुझे. So that didn't happen. Uh,
But that is so true. That is so true for all of us, because I also know, had somebody told me, like, for me, art was never a, it was never an option, because I knew I had to be financially independent, and art, at that point, I grew up in a smaller town, so it was never a question. Like, it wasn't even a thought. And even for me, like, for the design also, never it, that was risk. That also felt like, my father used to call me a tailor. Like, he would be like, would you want to open a shop here? What would you do? Like, he was so, like, I literally had to go, like, fight him, and I did it in my, like post grads, and I did again the whole entire thing. And he was like, you're just wasting your time. And that seemed unsustainable. So
I first of all, I empathize, and most importantly, I my family calls me a glorified tour guide. So it's okay. Same. I didn't get into that. Obviously, I didn't get into NID, and I got into all the other design schools, and I loved history. So it was a multi passionate situation.
but tell me something. At that point, was it like a art historian? Didn't it feel too far fetched of a dream, in the sense of like a career, because it's not as popular, not as glamorized, also not as create. I don't know how it is now, but I'm sure if you're doing it, you make it creative. Like, we all make our own jobs creative in our own ways, but it also is it looks very different. It's perceived very differently from a creative job, as of being an artist or something.
There's so much theory and academia involved in that. 100%. Um, while I was studying history at Delhi University, I also went to these art classes on the side, and there was this one group exhibition at Lalit Kala Academy in Delhi. Again, a very prestigious place to have a group exhibition of all the students. And so my artwork was up and everything. Artworks were up and everything. And in that moment, I could also effectively write about my artwork and other people's artwork. I could also hang the artworks and figure out the lighting. I could also figure out how to talk to the audiences that were coming into Lalkida Academy about everyone's artworks and mine. I could do the both the things, right? One is that, okay, create it and you put it up, but the other thing is that all these other things, which I've learned, that also make art happen as well. Now I didn't know at that time that all that is also valuable, because I was like, okay, I'm comfortable behind the scene and in front of it, like I'm able to do that. Um, Incidentally, in that moment, who will end up becoming my first boss, her name was Dr. Shobita Punja. She was the director of Heritage Education and Communication Service at INTAC in Delhi, which is a very heritage oriented, different direction, heritage pedagogy. And I had really requested her to interview me for an internship. And she had come to the exhibition, and I was very surprised. I felt very supported by, this mentor type of role that she took in my life. And I was like, okay, I definitely want to be under her tutelage. I want to see how did this. So my first internship was also in making sure how we learn about our heritage is part of scholastic education. I was 18, huh?
You were 18. So for, let's see, for me, I never, like, I grew up in a very, like, I grew up in Agra, a lot of heritage around me. There's been so much, like, it's not like education in the sense, but how we've life we've chosen, the way we live, and the architecture, everything around us, the language we speak. But for a very long time, I didn't come to appreciate it. I didn't understand the value of it. I didn't embrace it. Only I think 10 years from, like, back from here, I think that is when it started to seep into it. The more I got exposed, the more I started to find my own voice. And when I moved out and I lived and I walked around the world and all of that, and I started to understand that my voice is exactly coming from the same place. And I now today, heritage work, India, Southeast Asia, all of this is a very big part of who I am, the work I make, and the work that I also do here, let's say arts to hearts, and, like, womenhood and all of that. So I came to appreciate this part of who I am pretty late in my own context. For you, for someone who's chosen a platform, like, you're going in,
Heritage
in
and
a
yeah.
internship with this. Yeah. So did you have any interest at that point, or it only started to build up, or you were just like, as a student, you were like, whatever is coming your way?
Nah, whatever coming my way, to bilkul bhi nahi. I come from too regimented a family for that. No, 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 no. I was very focused that way. That if it's history and art, like this needs to happen.
You combination.
Yeah, yeah. Very much into the this is my 5 year plan, and yeah, yeah. I was very anxious as a child also that okay, this has to work out this way. So I was very focused, and yeah, I had an idea. I think that's the better part of passion is okay that you know that okay this is it, this is the only thing that's going to make you happy. I think over the years in adulthood we realize that the downside of passion also is that then to motivate your mind and yourself to do anything else, it's tougher. It's much tougher. And I talk about this a lot, I write about this a lot, that I think in the South Asian context our careers are also careers emboldened or supported by privilege, some amount of privilege. Of course, because I don't have to support anybody other than myself. Still, um, we're English speaking. I've had an upbringing in Delhi and in Bhopal. I, I grew up in Bhopal and in Delhi. Um, that in and of itself affords me exposure, which is already putting me in like the top 6% of the country. So I'm very cognizant that these types of careers or my type of a career is all these factors come in. So sometimes merit is a product of all of this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes you eligible to even come this far. Like,
Of course, 100%. This is very much a momentum of 13 to 14 years. And just to have only this be the part of the momentum is a huge aspect of where we come from that affords us these opportunities for sure.
yeah. Then what happened? You got that internship?
I got the internship. I enjoyed it. I loved it. I was very, very grateful for the kind of tutelage I had with my first mentor. And I think I understood how heritage is perceived in the country, which is very important. I also knew that, okay, I need to now finally study art history because that's different than history.
You figured that out.
Yeah. I was like, okay, I want to study this. Very few courses in India, very few degrees in India, maybe a little bit more diplomas, but very few degrees in India that offered that then Charuka and now also. So like at that time, about like 2012, not many options then, not many options now. So I was also able to again afford to go to a foreign university like University of London and study art history over there. Now that's a whole different exposure to quote unquote global north. That's a whole other thing where heritage was part of a very organized industry and culture was part art was part of an organized industry in London slash England. That made me wonder, when are we ever gonna get, I mean, I don't even know, like, when is the gap ever gonna be bridged? And I had interned at the British Museum. Okay. And I did
Wow.
10 years later, like totally did
Wow.
a tour talking about the loot there. Yeah, yeah.
That
So that's its own 10 years
and now full
full
circle.
circle. So that at that time I was 21, 22, and I was actually an intern at the British Museum Press, which is basically, the publications that are put in the retail shop at the British Museum. So I was interning there, and as staff members, then you get access to all the exhibitions and everything. I will admit, I was very starry eyed. It seemed mecca because the absolute amount of funding that it has to be able to be a certain way, it is very, very, it creates a standard. It took me also 10 years of research to understand that how do they have money? Where's the money coming from? Where's the money coming from, and where are all these items coming from, all the items on display? It took its own time. In fact, at that time, my master's thesis, and this is, your 2012, 2013, we're talking a decade.
Yeah, absolutely. That is also the growth that we show in our own work now, like how deep we start going, the questions we start to ask.
And I had a very, now I'd call it a very naive thesis. At that time, what I had written my thesis on was titled "Drunk with Plunder." That's actually a phrase from one of the British officers, whose diaries I read at the British Library, which was about situating object biographies of artifacts looted in 1857 and where are they found all across Britain. I went to other British museums, libraries. I went to Christie's Auction House Records. I went to different officers' museums, and there was just so much from 1857 to 67 just there. I read like Christie's auction book records. Had this whole this thing about from the Delhi Palace in like 1858. There's this jade bowl that was taken from here and is now bought by someone who sitting somewhere in the suburbs in England. So there's just so much of that, which absolutely made Britain very wealthy. Um, and hugely that created the narrative for cultural repatriation. So I wrote about this 10 years ago at a time when the world had not arrived at the decolonization buzzword. This is me sitting in conferences talking about my research because at that time कुछ पता ही नहीं था इस डिग्री के साथ करने भी क्या वाले हैं. So I was sitting in conferences talking about my research.
But did you not feel like you were raising the questions that would alarm, like,
That's also the naivety of youth, huh? So I thought raised all questions without thinking who it's alarming.
no, but now, yes, no, but 30 years now, you have the confidence and the knowledge, and the depth and the research. You're like, I know what I'm asking. I know who I'm questioning. I know all. But 20 years later, we're just gone into something. At that point, what was your feeling like?
I felt that I was just in the wrong rooms, okay, because at that time at all these conferences, there was an East India Company at Home conference. In that conference, I was talking about these very complex things around object biographies and cultural repatriation, and the mostly the entire audience was white. So who is who of them? I mean, they obviously applauded the capacity of research for a 22-year-old, but that was it.
But it wasn't as personal to you, and then because for you, I mean to them, but for you, I think over the years, these research they started to become personal.
I think it was always personal, but the vocabulary of how to express that took 10 years to develop. In fact, I remember this British Museum department head. I was interviewing as a student at that time, and I asked him very naively, so do you think these objects will ever go back? And he asked also, go back where? I said, go back to the country of origin, India, where I'm from. And he laughed. There's an old white dude laughing. And he laughed and he said, no, of course not. Then the British Museum will be empty. And 10 years later, I was like, yeah. I'm making a tour about it also. It will be empty. Um, but it took 10 years to be able to understand the practicalities, understand the cultural heritage law better, be able to understand how is it going to be actually turning out in reality. And sometimes more than the law, we need public opinion and time to change.
And public information, I think also. Public does not have an opinion unless they don't even know. And I think what is, I personally feel in this context is a lot of time, uh, the vocabulary, the way these subjects are informed and the information is spreaded is not approachable to the masses in the sense of the, people can't understand it. And that is also one of the aims and why I wanted to talk about all of this is because how can we, like, if someone comes today and talks to me about, I don't know, law of physics and whatever that is, their language, it could be a really basic terminology in what they converse on a day-to-day basis. But for someone like me who has no absolute knowledge, for me it's like a foreign language, and I feel like a lot of terms, when even I think this is very personal opinion, and I know would be like a lot of content that also happens, like in the sense of the exhibits and a lot of research and these things, there's a huge gap in the sense of how they're presented, and they're still being made for the top player who understands, who participates. But how do we expand that layer? Because then it needs to be simplified, it needs to be approachable, it needs to be broken down in a layman, so that people like anybody who just can hear and then decide, okay, am I interested or not, who cannot even understand what it is, cannot even make an opinion on it.
I absolutely agree. Usually, this was part of academic conference discourse. Now, your academic conference is open to academics, and they may or may not end up making any change when it comes to policy or law and all that. Sure, it took me the last 5 years to understand that there is what we call the masses, and the masses is everybody. Masses can be anybody, everybody, and it's also impossible to approach the masses. I mean, the masses are part of a social stratification, but the simplicity of language and content in its dissemination is something that you have caught spot on. Because I could still be talking about this in conferences, but the actual thing that made quote unquote some impact is the way social media changed and the way I was part of a very guerrilla operation to an extent where Densu Web Chutney in India and Vice World News UK got together and they're like, okay, let's create a tour which has augmented reality filters, easily accessible on Instagram, uses Wi Fi that the British Museum has, by the way. And anybody who has a phone capacity for understanding English, which is primarily the audience that goes to the British Museum as well, will be able to see it. And YouTube and Spotify has all of this as well. So even if you're not going there, because my biggest grouse, the British Museum always says that we're free for all. It's open for everybody to come. Visit. Yeah, but like, is somebody taking into account? Can we afford to visit it? Like, so many countries where people cannot afford to just go there and see this. Like, that's not going to work. In the court of public opinion, it took 10 years for people to understand more. And for that, I must say, dissemination of information is crucial. The way in which information is disseminated is crucial because the moment it became part of an Instagram AR filter, oh my God, the amount of people that downloaded this, heard it, had social impressions on it, it was like 18 million in about like a couple of months. And who is listening to my conference? So it was 10 years of studying that momentum and being able to translate it for simple 1 minute AR files.
So, can you talk a little bit about what the aim of the project was? What was really happening for someone who who hasn't seen it right now, what was really happening, and what was the intention? What were you trying to do? And why did it become so big?
So, Empires of Dirt is a series that Vice World News UK used to run, which was about how not just the British Empire but colonial empires. How did they get money? How did they become so big? And what are the atrocities that were committed in becoming that? Um, when they wanted to kind of extend this information, they also partnered with what I would believe is also the right kind of firm and people, which is Dentsu Web Chutney in India. And they were looking for a very specific type of historical accuracy researcher because the British Museum has an X amount of million objects. From that, you cannot talk about everything. You have to talk about something. So we picked 10 objects from 10 countries. So one object per country. And these are the countries that had the strongest type of claims. And I was onboarded to try and understand how best can that be represented with the art direction team that I was working with. My knowledge of technology increased so much. I would come from a historical, historian, pedagogical lens, and that had to be challenged with how will the masses understand this in 1 minute. Oof. So the aim was to make it very easily accessible. That it's not a linear, this is how it happened, you give it back. No. It was more to give the mic over to historians from the countries of origin and say that this is how it happened and just leave it at that. Not a do this, do that, nothing like that. Like, this is the context in which it was taken, looted, stolen, and just letting you know.
So what parts of like did historians come from?
So, I mean, India was one, of course. So, one is definitely that. India for like the Amravati marbles. We had the Summer Palace looting and so on and so forth through China. So, there was a historian from there. There were the Benin bronzes as well from Benin. So, you have your African conversation coming in through African countries from that lens. We had Rapa Nui Islands and a lot of the Hua Hakananai, which is basically like a statue of worship. So something like that. The Ashurbanipal library coming in from Iraq, for example. So I was working with 10 historians from some of the most amazing parts of the world that really have a strong case. Popular ones as well, which is Egypt talking about the Rosetta Stone, or when it looks at Greece talking about the Elgin marble. So, like a lot of historians from there as well.
And all of these are like all these artifacts are in the British Museum as of now.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a very, very basic question, and I want to ask, even if it's like when you're doing something like this, like you're basically questioning an
Being very
institution like
naughty.
the British
And I
Museum.
was a former.
Yeah, you being Yeah, you were exactly what I wanted to ask. So you were like in quote in quote, you were doing something that they, of course, wouldn't want you to do, or anybody for that matter. And you were doing it within collaboration from also you're bringing forces together, and you're asking someone, you're questioning them. A place that is also like you can question people that the world does not even know as much about. It can still be like a quiet matter, but something like a British museum, it's not, nothing can be ever quiet, right? So what was the reaction, and like did you have like, I don't know, how did is this like how things also happen in art history, like people can keep questioning and there's no, or is that like how does it happen?
I wouldn't claim to understand how things happen in art history as a whole. That's too big a field. I have more of a control over, or I have more knowledge around what happens with decolonization right now. So I can talk about that. I think the ethics of being a former employee, da, 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 I just keep saying that I was an intern. My visa only allowed 30 hours under a week. I was part of the publishing firm. So I just feel like I was not part of that. They were also very well aware of people who had hired me about the thesis that I was working on. So, like, where my allegiance was and all was also very clear. And I was also, thankfully, so unimportant at that time. Matter. Nobody would have cared. Not that right now there's some flower of importance. Fine.
Yeah, but at least, but also collective voice. I think there's definite power, and we've seen that there's definite power in a collective voice. It's bigger than one person, two-person. It's so much bigger.
Intent was between Vice, that's what threatening people like us, was that the British public gets informed. It was not about people from our country, by the way. This was for the British Museum going public. The biggest allies you can create are people from that very country of our generation that can understand this and think of it differently than their parents and grandparents. And that worked. The people who went on our tour the most were actually British people. And there is a wave in which time changes, and that also helped because decolonization became very big in former colonial powers, which is Britain or France or Germany or Netherlands, so on and so forth. And a lot of reparations are happening across the world. Multiple international museum bodies are putting pressure works.
Did they take any action in the sense of not what happened?
There's also, I mean, Vice and Dance Web had done all of their legal understanding on implications of something that we were very covered. And more importantly, we're also not the only ones claiming any of this. Lot, Lots of people do this, and more importantly, see, Britain is comprised of four nation states, right? It's Wales, it's Ireland, Scotland, and England. Keeping England aside, this year sorry, in the coming months, after the tour was released, I think this was around August last year, Scotland started returning items to India.
So by Scotland, you mean the government, like the administrative power there?
One of the biggest national museums in Scotland, yeah, they started returning artifacts back to India.
And so are they like they can do that? Like without the consent of like the bigger hierarchy,
They can, but the biggest masterstroke there is if Scotland's done it, then others will follow suit, and that pressure on,
follow the suit.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But more importantly, I don't think it's about only artifacts coming back or reparations. It's not just that. I think it is what I'm more interested in is history textbooks, including this
Yeah.
aspect of history. And I find that we're in a
Yeah.
very problematic state where there are so many ways in which history is being changed in text. The moment I utter that, I think it's very, very tough. There are ways to change history textbooks for a better, inclusive, more secular narrative, which means that British history textbooks have to talk about what the British Empire did. And there are worse ways in which history textbooks are changing. Our country would be one example. So, as a history teacher, I'm very compromised in so many different ways. So, the aims of tours like these or this kind of research, accessibility, approachability, as you rightly said, but most importantly, how can we get international lobbying and pressure to work in a way that informs a past reality to become better in our future? 100%. I'm all for that.
Love that. This is very insightful for me as well. Like, like I said, even before we started, like, there's, I know what you do, but I have like, a lot of times it seems, let's say intimidating, to be honest. It feels, like, say above the pay grade. And as much as I feel like it's, but I also know it's like, I love history. I studied and I didn't at that point. And now 10 years later, I think it's become such a big part of my own practice, as I try to understand what happened, how it impacts us, how it shapes us. So I think it's also also very powerful, like, because in our own ways, as creators, as people in the arts, we are a very, very big part of how we're shaping our future and documenting our future. And without, I think what I love about it is because it's not it's not like what I've spoken. It's also like, um what it shapes in the sense of, it's it's very organic. You can't really, like, it's like a force coming together when artists and people who are in the arts, like who are making things, they're basically documenting a timeline, um, without an impact, with very organic. So it really gives you a 360 perspective versus a one single line history book, or like a this perspective. Now I have a question for, let's say, someone who's, and I think you have a very unique path. Probably I don't think it's a very common path specifically in India. um Now, my question is, did you, if let's say someone who's also interested, has a motive, finds a purpose, wants to go down this road, what were your innovations in the sense of, to be honest, like, there is one thing called passion and what we want to, but there's also a thing called surviving, thriving, having a career, paying your bills, and all of those things. When you were deciding to go onto this path, it also, I'm sure, did you have any role models in the sense of who would tell you, okay, you'll be enough, you'll be safe, or did you have any inhibitions in that process, and even today, how you look at your career?
100%. I think in a path like this, fear, anxiety become your best friends, and constant hustle, which I don't advocate should be the only way we look at this, is also your friend. And absolutely, different types of regrets. I think I shouldn't have immediately gone on to my master's after my bachelor's. I should have stayed within India and worked within the Indian cultural sector to understand that this is what it looks like. I probably would have done a different degree.
What would you have done?
There's another degree, maybe at the same college, but there's another degree that came a few years
Okay.
later, which was titled Material Heritage and Exhibition Design. I would have done that.
And how, why, what would have made, like, why would you take, why do you feel that way?
More vocational skills. It was not just theory, right? Yeah, yeah. I realized that that would have been of more value, but it's a what if. So something I advise a lot of people that look at my career trajectory, if they are looking at it, is to definitely work before you go on to take another degree. Like definitely work in the sector interests you first, because a degree will only do so much, but you have to eventually earn. I'm also someone that, being on that side of art creation and then back into the other side, which is curating, writing, selling, all the other aspects of that, which is how my journey with Chemold grew as well. That's also where I realized that shit, being an artist is difficult. And I was not working with struggling artists that time. I was working with very, very established mid-career, growing into mid-career artists. It takes dedication, it's isolating, it takes consistency, it takes a different type of discipline, and it's hard. I find that when it comes, I've gone on NDTV and said this, that passion will not fill your stomach. Like it'll not. Of course, passion is important, but it's not going to fill your stomach.
And nobody, there's no good with starving artists in this world. Anybody
Nothing. That's
starving.
a horrible image stereotype made for a reason. And that should not be propagated as the righteous thing to be on. I mean, we unfortunately or fortunately live in a capitalist commercial world, and everybody needs to earn. So I think when it comes to the arts industry across the world within our country, I think there is, which we are aware of all the other problems that we have, where our pay is nothing compared to other industries for even the simplest of jobs. We don't have regulation, we don't have unions, we have nothing, we have no structure. And in our unregulatedness, there are ways in which lots of changes in the structure are still required, uh, which makes it difficult to earn a cohesive, consistent living through this.
Yeah, that is, for the most, like, part in most of the creative jobs, be it commercially, like.
100%. My full time, I mean, there are only two full time jobs I've ever done. One was being a marketing and program manager at the Heritage Transport Museum in Taudu, which is outside of Gurgaon. So I worked in a museum. And then the next thing I worked in was in a gallery, which was, I was the director of sales and strategy at Kemall Prescott Road in Bombay. Both these jobs taught me a lot, but 100%, and a very different use than anything my degree taught me. So that was my apprehension of in general. After I finished my time with Chemor, which was in 2018. So 2018 to now, um, what would be called an independent culture professional consultant is kind of the role that I embodied. But to go from a standard paying job to trying to have multiple incomes from multiple running projects which have to run simultaneously to even come close to the kind of salary that I had, that is tough.
But tell me, are these pay even the institutions? Do you feel are these fairly paid enough jobs as well in today's modern world? Like, because I know for a fact that I know a lot of jobs, like let's say teachers, government school. I'm okay. I'm do not quote me on this, but a lot of jobs haven't still subpart their payouts.
100%, of course. I also teach, so I know that I'm a visiting faculty in many institutions. No, the pay is still very schizoid. I will definitely say that when it comes to the creative industry, the pay is shit. Actually, yeah, it's very shit. But most importantly, I think if you're involved in the commerce of anything in the creative space, that can allow you to escalate in terms of creating a very, which is in every industry. If you're involved in the commerce of it, so it can be buying and selling of skills.
But you know what, Charlene, I feel what is different here is, and I'm going to say this from my own experience working in different fields. And I have like I worked like I'm in tech, I in design, then I have arts art, and then my own practice. And I feel like the world is changing with you know in a time where so being in the startup world, I realized like people it opened up a bubble for the corporates, and like you had to be stay like you needed to stay in your own position. So the startup world actually broke that line, and they created their own ways. They formed their own systems. We did whatever we felt, and we didn't ask for permission, and we just so there were unicorns, and there were companies that have really like done outstanding work. Similarly, I feel like there's a huge change in momentum happening in the creative field as well. I feel like as artists were told to stay in their lane of be in their studios and not feel be more than that. And I think I love the new breed of artists that are coming, and the new breed of other creatives, designers, and creative professionals who accept. And to be honest, like, and I completely embrace this fact that as a creative, because I've tried so many ways, I figured that as a creative, at least I apply to this to myself and anyone who I work with, and I keep telling them, in today's world, when we have so many creative voices within us, desires, because I think as creatives we also have like ideas we want to pursue. For that matter, you want to create an exhibit that can tell a story, and also do the project that you did with the web chat me, or you can do like a residency with like we all have these different desires to create, and killing them and feeling like I'm stepping out of my zone and my boundary is doing nobody good. It is only leaving unsatisfied creatives, underutilized creatives. So today, for that matter, like I I have a pool of over the 10 years, I have a pool of skills that I have, and I've really supplied them and projected them into different different projects that I feel like, okay, I can use myself, and also it can get me paid. So I'm not drying myself up into one space and feeling like, okay. So I feel like this we didn't have before. The permission we have granted ourselves, that, and also acknowledging the fact that I feel like you're one, like you said, uh, one thing is not going to do enough for you. You can't survive your livelihood on an exhibit or on a one single project. You have to think like an entrepreneur, you have to act like an entrepreneur, because you have to think about, okay, this month, okay, this is what, like, that's also how I operate. This is what I do for passion. I'm okay investing money and not getting anything in return now. This is what I'm going to do this month or whatever, because I can use this skill to help someone and get paid in return. This is what I'm going to do in a long run. This gives me like a stability. And that's how I also project my career, in the sense that I can do whatever, and even if it takes more time, I'm okay as long as I'm doing it sustainably. But I feel like this didn't happen before. um, a lot of it meant before was, if I'm an artist, I have to be in this role even if do not have food on my table. I can't even tell you, like I would have artists ask me like, I don't feel, and I've been there, I don't feel I'm doing good justice. Like, I don't want to do this job because it'll not make me enough of an artist or enough of that. Like, this has been so unfair of a narrative that has literally left. There would be so many amazing projects that could have been made and brought to life if we were all a little more satisfied, stomachs filled, bills paid.
100%. I find that we forget that there are some of the biggest, most romanticized examples that we have. They too had other jobs. Mir Patwardhan is a radiologist. It's a whole other, and that informed his practice. For example, if I could take well recognized established names, many others had parallel careers or full fledged careers before they went into art, which may or may not have anything to do with art. I think that that needs to be highlighted more. And two, more importantly, all the younger artists that come to me, I'm just like, you're getting some commission work, make it. It does not make you less of an artist. You're getting some XYZ project which is going to pay you, take it.
Yeah. And use your skills. And I think, I feel like there has so much. I know a lot of projects I don't even put out at all. But because I have been in the startup and I have another company and all of that, I use so much of my skills, and they like, I know that they cannot do without it. Like, and I know if I have that skill, it gives me a stability. If it, and also like, I really, I feel as an artist, I feel as a creative, whoever, whatever we're doing. If we have multitude of sources of how we are learning, it just makes who you are as a creative, your mind so much more broader. The knowledge and the depth you have in your work, I think, even running arts to hearts, and um it's given me like a, it's opened my mind in the ways I couldn't even imagine. And I think if I would have just been on the artist side, this would have taken me like another 10 years to learn. And today I feel like it's informed me so much more holistically. And I only keep saying this because I think the worst feeling is feeling underutilized. And a lot of creative people feel that, I feel.
Of course. I had two major points to add here. I find that I mention this a lot in my workshops and everything. I've written about it, like very specific paper about it, which is the how the advent of technology changed art production, 90s onward. Also, earlier artists were working in isolation and they had no idea what the other artist was doing until you. We don't have these things now. We know what everybody is doing if we really want to know what they're doing. And there are ways in which skills can be exchanged. There are ways in which everything can be put out into the world for consumption for art creators. Now, what happens with that also is that a whole other plethora of problems, which is really comparison, because everyone puts the best part outside, right? But also, we cannot deny that it allowed for a multitude of skill sets to be built. The second point I wanted to make was my art history degree. I have no idea how it impacted my job after that, which was sales and strategy at Chemold. I had that for 3 years. What I can definitely say, having that job for 3 years was my art MBA and arts degree rolled into one. It sounds like I was selling art only, but what I was realizing was viewership. How do people look at art of all types? I realized how to understand an artist's practice and momentum. I myself saw, engaged with, and was part of more than 40 exhibitions in 3 years, going up, being installed, and being deinstalled. I was part of the international fair circuit where I could understand how different audiences from different parts of the world reacted to art, how I could talk about it. Um, I was part of multiple types of strategies when it came to bringing in newer generations into Chemold as well. I through that I would be able to also attend every other type of from artist studios to auctions. I could attend all of that. So this was at a very crucial time. I was 24 till 27, so that was it was that time. Um, After 27 is when I began my independent career, and I can tell you, like as I was leaving Hemol, I made a list. What are the skills I have? I think I have. I have the chodo. What are the things I think I have? There was marketing, there was sales, there was curation, there was teaching, there was curriculum creation, there was art walks, there was just some five, six, seven things. And I just said to myself that the next few years, all I'm going to do is monetize each of them, except sell art, except selling art. So I remove myself from the commerce of art because I had learned that skill very much.
Your intention to become an artist, like an artist in the sense of making art. I think we are all art. I think we all do creative work. I feel like it's very very small perspective of being an artist only when you're making as an act of like I think curating an exhibition is an entire projection of art. It's a creative
Oh, it
process in
is. It
its
is. Oh
own.
my God! Please, this is my artwork. Yeah,
Yeah,
this is my artwork.
absolutely. Yeah, I 100%. So my partner and I, he runs the company, and I see so many parallels, and within my own job also running arts to arts. But even still, arts is still a creative project for me. But like his job is like a tech complete, no artistic. But the way we respond to our canvases, the way we look at our job, it's and I'm saying like we're just creating two different our mediums are different, but we're two same professions, very very similar. So but I think you became clear with you didn't want to make like the traditional sense of what making art in the sense of painting, and like you chose another medium.
I chose another medium. I also realized that there are lots of artists, lots of people who create art. There are very few people who can curate, sell, write, exhibit, effectively talk about it. So I became that person. Even though I no longer sell art anymore, and I had my fill at that time, and then I just stepped back from that and made everything else work for me. And I had to do all of that to be able to remain financially sustainable as well in this particular field. It is also the past 5 years that made me grow, because as an independent professional, you're negotiating your contracts, your salaries, you're negotiating money for other people that are working with you or for you. You're attached to different organizations at different points, and that tests how you're going to respond to a larger organization, smaller organization. And then I worked with museums, galleries, heritage sites. I worked with tech companies. I created curriculum which was interdisciplinary from like business, humanities, design, and technology. I worked with technologists so much. I wrote a lot for lots of different spaces. I went away from what I knew about art only to come back to it in this role with lot more knowledge and exposure. So when you
Okay.
know,
What are you doing right now? Can you tell us a little bit
when
about
you look
that?
at this and this, uh, basically what you're seeing behind me is my curatorial mind map this side, and a multifaceted timeline that I'm building. I'm sitting in the Kemol archives. In fact, two of my colleagues are also here. So one is Harshada, who's the archive manager, and one is Yashvi, who we've onboarded to assist me with this process. I was invited to curate Kemol's 60th anniversary exhibition, and the fact that an institution is 60 years old in a country that is zero, right? Like and in a country that is 25, 76 years old, that is in and of itself the history of the yeah, it's a history of the country, of the city, of politics, of society, and there are many ways in which um, my age and youth become a factor as well, because um, the legacy of curators that have curated this particular exhibition before me are also people I very much look up to. So there's Geeta Kapoor, Chaitanya Samrani, and Keku and Khorshid Gandhi. They've curated 25 years, 40 years, and 50 years exhibitions. This time around, Shireen Gandhi, who's the director of the gallery, and she's been running Chemold after the tutelage with her parents since '88. So she's really taken it in a different direction, and she wanted a younger voice this time around.
which is very, very exciting, welcoming, and yeah, it's needed.
Yeah, it's needed, and I come with being able to understand in one hand where's AI, ChatGPT, and tech, and how is that going to be incorporated in certain artists' practices for this particular exhibition? Or the fact that I'm a researcher, I'm also able to research the entire archive to be able to come up with curatorial prompts for the artist to create artwork with, or at least have a conversation with what they want to create with. The entire exhibition, I wanted to title it Chemolding and make chemold in and of itself a verb, because what the founders of Chemold, Keko and Khorshid Gandhi, were able to do, which we're struggling with right now, is really fight to keep expression of art very fearless and allow for creative expression in a way which is not threatened. I feel that is something that we're struggling with right now. To be able to highlight that truth, to have certain socio-political sensibilities also come into play, because like there are four aspects to this timeline. So one of them is basically what was happening socio-politically around the world, for example, and how much impact and back and forth it had with the Indian art movement, with the family, with the gallery, like what was going.
God, wow. So it's three different parallels that you're already tracking. Four. I can see three lines.
Yeah, sorry, here, there you go. On top.
Oh, here we go. Yeah. Which is very interesting. It's like such a like a mind map. Like you're it's like it is so exciting. Also, like in the sense of
It's a research project, it's a curation project, it's an everything project.
it's like a filmmaking storyboarding, like going so much in depth and understanding, okay, this is happening, why this is happening, and how this all of this led to this.
All
Like
my history and art history degrees are coming into use. All this cultural heritage law and all of that is coming into use now. All of it. And especially the last 5 years, right?
oh
Because I became this person who was able to handle this level of multilateral entrepreneurial ventures, and that added a certain kind of resilience to be able to take on a project of this scale, have the grace and reality check to admit the moments and time where it's overwhelming, sometimes where I
yeah.
direction, to admit to my peers very much that it is anxiety inducing, it is scary.
Yeah, and it's a lot of responsibility. 60 years of an institution, lives, so many people coming together. But also, it's also very fulfilling that you, once you come through that, you've crossed that bridge and you look over uh, how much you've like, it's like pulling all pieces together and putting that puzzle in one, and you're like, oh my God,
Making sense.
it's here. This is,
That's a December podcast with
yeah,
you. Okay.
yeah,
Right now,
yes. No, no, we'll do much more. We'll do a tour and
yes,
like,
right now it's a work in progress. So I can very much admit that definitely there are moments where I'm just like, how is this going to come together? And we
we'll see.
don't applaud vulnerability of honesty. I think it's very,
Yeah.
very difficult.
Oh, we love that.
Thank you. I think our culture doesn't reward honesty and
Yeah.
vulnerability very well. But I would still say that the last 5 years of entrepreneuring have taught me that there's a certain practicality to being honest as well, because it was
Yeah.
when I could share this with my colleagues at work, I was able to bring them in rather than create a facade of forced.
Yeah. Yeah.
having it together all the time.
Yeah, and also adding so much things. I feel like the moment we start accepting our limitations at that point, and there's another kind of expansion that happens because your mind starts to work in a very different way. You no longer, I feel like you don't no longer think about. I think it becomes a lot less personal. I think I feel like in this process, I've learned that if I feel I'm limited by it, I can be open about it. There will be someone who will tell me, okay, you know why? How can you open this limitation? And it only leads to expansion.
Thank you. That's very kind. I will ruminate on what you've said. I think that's a very apt thing to hear at this moment in time. That's very well.
No, we'll hopefully we'll be able to do this in person, and hopefully we'll be able to see all your hard work come to life like that.
In fact, in lots of workshops, so I get invited to conduct a lot of workshops with emerging creators, artists across many places in the country. In my last two, three slides, I definitely show I show my CV. I said that okay, this is a CV is a compressed set of achievements, right? And I keep it on the screen, and then there's another column where I show every single thing I've been rejected from or didn't happen for
I
whatever
love
reason.
that. Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that creates a level of humaneness that is desperately required.
Yeah, realisticness also. Like, okay, we can keep looking at what we can keep looking at what we don't have, but also look at what we have, and then we can constantly look at what others have and not understand that everything they have left and not chosen for, gotten for context.
I think this, when you mention it's intimidating to try and understand such a cross-checked career like mine. I think that I didn't get through too many things, was rejected from too many things, and obviously that's hardly the thing we share or show. So that's again something that I'm learning, and I put that in my presentations a lot when I speak with younger emerging artists and creators anywhere or older mid career whoever honestly. I think this exhibition has been a huge space of growth of me as a person, as a researcher, as somebody that is, I come back to age again and I need to stop. But I'm the youngest person involved in this, right? All the artists, creators, the gallerists, everybody's older than me.
So you have a unique perspective and a voice to add. And I think what I feel like is also a great timing because I truly personally feel like from here, from where we are, um, the arts is going to drastically change drastically with the intervention of technology, with also the years of technology we've had. We can already see um, the impact of it in the creative field, and I think this is a very important time in history uh, to record that what's happening and to see where it can lead to. Like it is a very, I feel like it's a very very important, like the age that we're in, it's a very important timeline for creatives, artists. I don't think there would have been a better time to document this.
I hope so because I find that there's also like a lot of freedom in the social justice narratives that I'm at least trying to bring in, which is also based on a lot of observation of the last 5 years as well, where you would have noticed there's a drastic difference in narratives around queerness. I'm queer myself, and I'm deeply invested in how queerness in art gets represented, or how queerness gets represented, honestly, in our country. There's a huge understanding of how artists from different minorities, creators from different minorities make their mark now, because in effect, social media has, of course, helped in that accessibility, where we have artists that are coming from um, multiple communities of caste, where those are very, very tough and important conversations. And unfortunately, since the country's independence and before, there is so much change yet to be desired. There are different pockets when it comes to visibility around issues of disability, where that's a whole. So these are so many blind spots which, being the curator of an exhibition like this, along with the fact that my curatorial practice as a public programmer or as a teacher also kind of brings these into classrooms and public spaces like an Indian.
And make it more reachable. Yeah. And I think there's another thing that I feel like I will put it as my last words. Like sometimes I and that's also how I see, like for me, being a creatively, making things, I feel like I'm a maker more than just like a creator. And I always say that I feel like I'm more a creator than just one idea of being an artist, and I feel like my canvases change a lot more. And then we have a purpose, in the sense of, for me, I found my underlying layer of course, womanhood, patriarchy, and then heritage. And I think, okay, these are the combinations. How can I do this on the top of the level, and then maybe just by making something, then in the classroom, then at my home, or then in a global setup on a podcast. And like, this is like a chart for me, and I whatever way I can do about it, I'm ready to do. And I think it really has helped me find these underlying layers.
100%. I find that it's here there is a very interesting aspect of ethics as well, because we're afforded different privileges, right? I definitely come from a set of economic privilege, um, and other than being queer, there are experiences that I have not had. Am I the right person to be talking about those experiences of those people? Um, or I should absolutely talk about it, because with the level of privilege that I am coming with, I may unfortunately, fortunately be able to open the doors faster, get the conversation moving faster, and
And also probably create a platform for those people to at least have them there, I think. So if we can't stay safe for that, because we've not had those experiences, I think we all can be great platforms for each other. um, to, like, I'm not a cure, but I deeply and wholeheartedly support and want to use the platform. And over the years, we've definitely have used it in whatever capacity we can. So sometimes I think we all have platforms when we feel like, okay, I support this, but probably I do not have the right
yeah, I
um,
may not be
experience and
the
live in it. Yeah, the
person with the
right.
lived experience, but
Yeah, but how can I do it? In whatever way can I become a vessel for this voice or for this subject to support, or just add more sound to it, or add more backing to it, or give it more sustainability, life pump, whatever in way we can. I think that also.
or sometimes empty the space that we've occupied, so anybody else that can't, whatever, is able to occupy it. Yeah, those are my tougher contemporary dilemmas as well.
But I'm sure you'll do a great job.
So right now, like this, my day looks like I'm writing, coordinating with artists. The first exhibition is titled "Framing," and that opens 15 September. So I hope there's between September, October, November, December. I hope you visit.
You say first exhibition. So is there like a series?
There too. So the first exhibition is titled "Framing," and that opens on 15 September, and the second exhibition opens in the middle of November, and that's titled "Futuring."
Okay, and both of them are cumulating.
They're both chem molding, yes. And the underlying, at least the underlying curatorial concept thesis that I've read ranges from Sylvia Duckworth's Wheel of Power and Powerlessness all the way to the Indian Wheel of Power and Privilege, to Abraham Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs, and then Patnaik's Hierarchy of Needs as well, to try and understand that, there are these lot of Western narratives, and, what are the Indian versions that have
Yeah.
grown over time, that try and understand human motivation and needs for the Indian context. And I've distilled that into four paradigms of artistic expression. Emotion, which is the most childlike we become when it comes to life, death, grief, loss, and love, which happens to everybody, regardless of where they come from.
Hmm.
Then you have nurturing, safety, care, and home. Like, how do you feel that you belong, and how do you feel at home? Once you have these basic things in place, then you also have your externalities. How do you rage? How do you dissent? How do you protest? How do you want the world to change? And the last and most
Yeah.
difficult one, which only if you have all of this, maybe would you be able to ascend to that, if at all, which is your relationship itself, the mirror that you
Yeah.
provide to yourself. So all artistic responses, to an extent, fall in these for me to be able to curatorially arrange my shows. And
Yeah.
framing is for the ones that have a past looking context, and futuring is for the ones that have a future looking context. And that's how they kind of come together. But also, there are three shows, I just remembered. The third one is titled
Okay.
Remembering. It's a nostalgia show. We're actually going back to the
Oh
old
wow.
gallery, Kemold, which was on the first floor of the Jahangir Art Gallery for a week. This is like a throwback,
Okay.
right? This is pure nostalgia, fun, getting back all the old artist veterans, and their
This is so
experts and their
fun.
generational collectors, writers, poets. I mean, that's absolute fun happening for a week as
Wow.
well. Yeah.
Oh wow. You have to let me know when all of this is happening.
Of
I'll come
course,
to
I'm going to give
Bombay.
you all this information. And concurrently, something
Yes.
that has not happened and can also happen when you have an institution so old is also where I'm sitting right now is the Chemol Archives, which is housed in Chemol Collab, which is an extension program of Chemol, where this is run by the third generation of the Gandhi family. And what Atyan, who is
Yeah.
Harshad Kapoor's granddaughter, and the other co-founder, that's Sunaina, what they've done is all the upcoming younger artists that they have in their roster, they are
Merging.
responding
Yeah.
to Kemol Prescott Road artists.
Oh
And
wow.
my Kemol Prescott Road artists are responding to multiple aspects of the art.
To
So we
their.
have like a three tier
Oh, three.
layer of response happening.
Oh, that's very
So
interesting.
it's a lot going on. And the
Very
Kemol collab
interesting.
show is also going to open very
I get.
soon. So
So I really appreciate you. I really appreciate you in midst of all of this. You're sitting here and sharing. I think it's a very nice peek into your brain, and I'm sure this you look hear this episode again once everything is done. So it'll also give you like it's like a again we are also recording a moment in
yes,
history for you,
absolutely.
personal trajectory, and so that you can like come back to it and be like, okay, this is what was happening at this point.
100%. Thank you so much. You took the time. We had multiple delays, multiple technical things, but I'm so glad we made this happen.
Same here, same here. I think it's been a very, very insightful conversation. I've learned so much and I'm very, very inspired. And I really look forward to what you create. And I'm more than happy to support it in whatever ways we can. But before I let you go, let's start the support from here. Anyone who's listening, how can they support you? How can they follow you? Where can they find you? Let us know.
Perfect. So basically, Instagram is the easiest way to reach me, and my Instagram handle has my name and my surname, which is Shaleen Wadhwana. Mostly, I get back to all the DMs that I get, so that's the easiest way. Very accessible over there. Of course, for my upcoming project, definitely if you're in Bombay, obviously please visit all these four exhibitions that we have happening. And they're going to be 3D mapped, so that they're also going to be digitally available. Having said all that, definitely look at my tour. It's also there in my
Yeah.
Instagram, so have a look at that. And lots of online events. I expect everybody to attend all of them.
Perfect. So everyone who's interested, make sure you go and read through the website of this episode. You'll find links. I'll also take more information from Charlene about the project she mentioned about the British, and we'll add all of that and anything else that Charlene would want, and we'll do our own research and make it into a good archive for this episode. And then hopefully once we have everything live, and we'll share the good news with you. So stay tuned. Make sure you support the project. Make sure you support her work. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you tune in next week.
Perfect.
So thank you.
Likewise. Do take care. Thank you.